Hi, my name's Eric Stevens, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing with 4Point. 4Point is an Adobe Gold solution partner specialized in Adobe Experience Manager. We're experts in electronic forms, process automation, and digital asset management for enterprises. This is a presentation that I gave recently at the Document Strategy Forum in Anaheim, California. And what I'd like to do is share with you now how some organizations that we've worked with have improved their customer experience. And this is really focused on regulated industries, so organizations that are in the banking, financial sector, insurance, healthcare, government, or regulated manufacturing such as utilities, oil and gas, and those kinds of things. So let's get started. When people talk about customer experience, the first thing that they usually think about is things in retail. And they think about making their consumers in retail, those retail purchasers, happy. They think about how can I make it easier for those people that come into my store to buy things, to go to my online store and buy things. And that's perfectly valid. And even in regulated industries, we need to deal with the consumers. But often in regulated industries and in bigger organizations, especially things like financial services and healthcare, we're dealing with more than just individual consumers. We're dealing with different organizations that are looking at contractual relationships. We've got documents that they have to sign, sometimes very, very complex documents that we have to provide to them, and we have to give that information out to them. But the challenge that we've got is that while we have to comply with certain regulations and certain terms and conditions that need to be delivered, those same people are also consumers. And they're getting a better consumer retail experience than they're getting from you in your organization. And they want that same experience. There's no reason it can't be different. Let me give you a personal example. Recently, I renewed my mortgage. And so my mortgage company, who had great rates and I was very happy with them, sent me a renewal document. Okay. It was a 15-page document, double-sided on legal paper. I had to check off a box on page 2 to indicate which mortgage option I wanted to select. And then I had to sign the section on page 15. Okay, that's annoying, but I see what they're trying to do. Make me read all the terms and conditions all the way through. All right, that's fine. But many of the terms and conditions included in there didn't apply to me at all. They were for a different jurisdiction entirely. So they really shouldn't have been there. The document wasn't personalized for me in any way, shape, or form. It was a standard boilerplate. Then the other thing that they did associated with it is they said, okay, you can send this back to us by fax. Wait, what? So I called them. And I got through to, you have questions about your mortgage renewal. And in the voice message that they had before you pressed 1, they said, there are no other options. In fact, they got so many calls, they put it in the voicemail message telling you, no, you can't email it to us. So they blocked it. So I had to take it to the UPS store, have it photocopied, because it was double-sided, and fax them back 30 pages because the signature was on the back and the check mark was on the front. That's just poor customer experience. They did it ostensibly because, well, we're regulated and we have to do it this way. That's not true, and some of the examples that I'll talk about will highlight why that is. But let's focus on what exactly we talk about when we say improving customer experience. When we want to improve a customer experience, we want to focus on 3 different areas. The first key area that we want to focus on is making things obvious. If you're experienced in user experience design, then often we talk about intuitive interfaces. And really what we mean there is that it's obvious what the person has to do. It's obvious as to whether or not I should have photocopied all those pages or just sent them back the signature page and the checkmark page. It wasn't obvious to me what I had to do. Make it obvious for your users. Make it clear what they should be doing so that there's no questions. And that also reduces the amount of effort that you have to put into it responding to the customers. Make it simple for them. Make it easy for them. Don't make them go to the UPS store and photocopy things. Make it so that they can use multiple different mechanisms and make it the easiest way for them to interact with you. They're doing this because they want to work with you. You should make it as easy as possible. And make it fast. All right? Make it so that it's quick and easy. Don't waste the user's time. Don't waste your customer's time. So we want it obvious, we want it simple, and we want it fast. Now let's talk about some examples where organizations implemented customer-facing solutions that did exactly that for their organization. The first one I want to talk about is the United States Government Printing Office. The GPO, the Government Printing Office, is the keeper of the national records for the United States government. They grab information from a wide range of different organizations, agencies, departments, divisions, the Congress, the Senate, the executive branch, and they pull that information together, and they are responsible for storing that information and distributing that information. And the distribution is key, because the shift to digital documents has profoundly changed how they deal with these documents and the information that they have to provide. It changes how they're assembled. It changes how they're brought together. It changes how they're produced and printed and distributed. It changes the security requirements. And that was one of the tremendous challenges that the GPO had. How do you know that the document you just got, which describes the newly passed law that affects your organization, how do you know that that is in fact the official version? And the GPO needed to solve that problem in a way that covered everyone who wanted to have access to that information. So their problem was assembling and distributing millions of documents every year from multiple organizations with all sorts of different rules associated with it. They also had to ensure that the documents that they sent out to other people, citizens, couldn't be changed. They wanted them to be ensured so that no changes could occur, they can't have tampering, and that this one was the accredited version. And they had to ensure that they were fully searchable, that people could find what they needed to get easily and quickly. The web interface you see down there, that's the new interface they put in place so that it was very easy to find these documents. What we did is we built a solution for them that automatically takes all the information and the documentation from multiple different sources and assembles that into a single PDF document that becomes the document of record associated with it. Then we automatically apply an electronic seal, a signature, around that document that can be used to validate that this is the official version. And you can see on the screen down on the lower right-hand side, you can see the signature block that shows up when you hover over top of the document. It says this is a signed and certified version of it. That also means that we've applied strong document protection so that no one can tamper with this. And we do it available in Adobe Document Cloud so that it is available free of charge to every user who wants to access this. So that way that they can satisfy the mandate to distribute these documents to all citizens and all interested parties associated with it. Doing that, they saved a tremendous amount of money, a tremendous amount of time, but most importantly, they made the documents that were necessary for citizens to be engaged in government, they made those available efficiently, effectively, and securely. Next example I want to talk about is GE Healthcare. GE Healthcare is one of the largest manufacturers of health equipment used in hospitals and diagnostic centers in the world. And they provide a wide range of services related to those. And when they go in and they install a piece of diagnostic imaging, an MRI machine, an X-ray machine, whatever it happens to be, there's a lot of service and support that goes around that. And all of that needs to be tracked, monitored, and regulated to ensure that the maintenance that's being done on these very important pieces of equipment is done properly and effectively to ensure that they're not endangering any patients or any other individuals working with it. So they have a process for what's called preventive maintenance, where individuals will go out and check the machines at regular intervals associated with it. And there's multiple parties who are very interested in the results of that preventive maintenance. So GE themselves needs to ensure that they are maintaining the equipment in the appropriate way. The healthcare organization, the hospital, they have to be assured that the equipment is maintained in the proper way. Right? And the government, the regulatory bodies that monitor these things need to be able to go, hey, is that piece of equipment been maintained correctly? So all of this is very, very critical so that all of these parties know for sure that that equipment was maintained correctly for the safety of all involved. The challenge is that they have thousands of different pieces of equipment. thousands of checklist maintenance documents, manuals associated with it, all of this information that they need to provide to the technician to ensure the technician is doing the right job. It's complex sets of manuals and instructions about what has to be done. And the need for critical and clear tracking of all of this information. So being assured that the technician has gathered the right information, is taking the right checklists for the right piece of equipment, and is performing the right checks was a critical aspect of what they needed to solve. So what they did was they built a solution based around mobile forms that are dynamically adjusted based on the equipment and the maintenance schedule that the technician is now entering in. It's integrated in with their scheduling system, so as the technician goes in and says, oh, I'm supposed to go do a maintenance check on this piece of equipment at this location, they select that on the form, and now the form dynamically adjusts itself to show the appropriate checklists, the appropriate information that the technician needs about that piece of equipment, any past history associated with it. It gathers up the relevant documentation that is linked into what that maintenance at this point in time has to happen, so that the technician has that right at their fingertips when they need it. Then they can use that on site to run through that checklist on the mobile device, marking off when they do each thing. They can take photographs for evidence of, oh, look, that board is not in the right place. That piece of equipment, that subsection isn't exactly right, so we want to change that. And they can then record that. And all of that then goes into an auditable document of record that then says, this was the preventive maintenance activities that occurred at this point in time. That can be stored, that can be shared, that's accessible by all of the appropriate parties that need to see exactly what happened at that point in time. So that allows GE Healthcare to ensure that they're doing the right things, gives the technician everything they need to do it. The hospital can be assured that it's all happening in the appropriate manner for patient safety, and the regulatory bodies can cross-check all of this at any point in time. The final example I want to talk about is Change Healthcare. Change Healthcare is a very interesting example of how to really improve both patient welfare, but also operational functions within a hospital. What Change Healthcare does is they provide eligibility and enrollment services on behalf of hospitals for patients in need. A patient comes in, they have a need for some kind of a service from the hospital, perhaps an emergency service, perhaps just critical care, but they have a limited or no insurance. What Change does is helps them find the right insurance program, be it a government program at the state, federal level, or whether it is third-party insurance that may be offered and may be applicable to their particular situation. They help the patient find that insurance so that then the patient can get the care that they need. As you can imagine, if you've ever filled out a health insurance form or a health application for any kind of insurance, it's a complex process. And often there's a lot of overlap between application A and application B. And in a lot of situations, the representative of Change who is helping the patient would be asking the same questions over and over again, copying them onto new pieces of paper. There's a tremendous value to the patient because they get the insurance that they need to get the care that they need. There's also tremendous value to the hospital because it saves the hospital trying to track this down. The hospital can focus on patients rather than focusing on process. So Change does this for both sets of organizations. This is an example of the manual, paper-based enrollment process that the individual, the representative of Change, would go through to help the patient identify what insurance they would be applicable for. They would start by sitting down with the patient, going through a series of enrollment forms, finding that information out, copying, making copies, and taking evidentiary information, driver's license, other information about their health situation that they might have. But they have to take all of that back to their office, make copies of it all, print out all of the applications with the filled out information that they had to type in, take that back to the patient, sit down with the patient, go through all of that documentation with the patient, ensure it was correct, get the patient sign up. Then go back to the office and sit down and send all of those applications into the various organizations, and then they could say, yes, you have this coverage. a complex, involved process going back and forth between it, and if they made any mistakes associated with it in entering a piece of information, or the patient didn't give them the right information, they missed a question, then they'd have to go back and fill those pieces in. Slow, time-consuming, and really not the best experience for the patient associated with that, who, remember, is in the hospital and needs help and can't get it until the insurance is resolved. So what they did was they built a digital enrollment solution. They used a mobile device in an offline mode, because many hospitals don't allow Wi-Fi in certain areas of the hospital, that allowed them to fill out the information that they needed for the patient in a dynamic form. And what this does is allows them, based on what the patient has, to know which questions need to be asked. And once those questions are asked once, they're not asked again. It's propagated through multiple different applications automatically. It allows for digital signatures, so that once we have all that information, it can be reviewed right then and there with the patient, and the patient can actually sign it and say, yes, this is a true statement of my situation as it stands right now. They can also take photographs and scans of all the appropriate evidence that they need associated with it, whether it's driver's license or other documents related to their health situation. And it has built-in data integrity checks that allow them to go through and ensure that they haven't missed any questions, and that there's no confusion between two different answers. Oh, but you said over here you didn't do this, and over here you said you did. We've got a conflict associated with it. So there's a built-in check mechanism which reduces the amount of time you have to go back based on errors. And all of this can then taken back to the office, plugged in, uploaded, and integrated with legacy systems, so that it then propagates that data in all the right places and sends out all of the right applications automatically with one patient visit. So this was the manual paper-based enrollment process that we went through. Here are the changes that occur. So now we grab the appropriate form that we need associated with it. The going to the patient stays the same. That doesn't change. We still need to talk to the patient. But what does change is that at the point in time when we're gathering the information, that's all we need to do. Once we're gathering all that information, we're pulling all of that together, now we're complete with the patient. We can then go back, load it in, have it propagated. By implementing this kind of a system, they had a 46% reduction in the amount of time that it took to work with the patient. That's an improvement in the customer experience. So by implementing this solution, Change Healthcare not only substantially improved the experience for the patients at the time that they needed care in a very stressful situation, but they also implemented a solution that was scalable, that was very, very productive for everyone involved associated with it, with a 46% decrease in total patient time. But it also was very impactful as it affected both the hospitals and Change Healthcare. They do over 1.5 million transactions associated with that. It's very efficient. They reduced their labor costs by 130 hours per day. And they substantially increased the customer satisfaction, making it better for everyone associated with it. So that gives you an overview of 3 different organizations who are in heavily regulated industries and how they addressed customer experience. Not only did they improve customer experience, but they also improved their internal processing and were able to more effectively and efficiently deliver those services to their customers or to their patients in the case of Change Healthcare. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. If you have any questions about what 4Point can provide, about Adobe Experience Manager, or about the solutions I've talked about, or how they might apply in your organization, please visit www.4point.com or contact us at sales@4point.com. Thank you.